She said the envelope across the table like it was a piece of cake she'd baked for me. No smile. No congratulations. Just a manila envelope, thick and sealed, sitting between the salad bowl and the candle I'd lit to make dinner feel special. It was our first anniversary. I thought she'd come to celebrate. Instead, she called it a gift. For when you finally come to your senses, she said, I figured I'd save you the paperwork. My husband, Aaron, didn't say a word. He just stared down at his plate, hands locked together so tight his knuckles were white. And me? I smiled through the sting, because when you're raised to be polite, you don't throw your wine in someone's face, even when they just handed you your marriage in an envelope. Before that night, I thought I had the kind of life women prayed for. Aaron and I met at a food truck festival on a humid July evening. I was sweating through my blouse, clutching a lemonade, when he turned around in line and said, If you're going to judge me for ordering 3 tacos, do it kindly. He had a shy grin and a softness I hadn't seen in a man for a long time. We married a year later. Small ceremony, backyard twinkle lights, his cousin on the guitar. I wore a lace dress I'd found on sale, and when Aaron saw me walk down that aisle, he cried. Not loud, not messy, just one clean tear that told me I was safe. And for a while, I was. His mother, Lorraine, pretended to like me at first. She smiled too long, hugged too tight, but there was a watchfulness in her eyes, like she was memorizing me for later. She'd say things like, I hope you cook better than your mama, sweetheart, or, Aaron's always liked his shirts folded my way. At first I laughed it off. Every family has quirks. And I wanted so badly to be accepted that I ignored the small stings. Aaron said, She'll come around. And I believed him. After the wedding, we moved into a little yellow house on the edge of town, peeling porch paint, creaky floors. But it was ours. I painted the kitchen sea glass green, bought secondhand curtains that fluttered when the breeze came through, and filled every drawer with hand-me-downs from my mama's place. We were building a home. Lorraine, though, didn't like that we hadn't chosen the apartment next to hers. She called twice a day, popped in without knocking, left food in our fridge like she was stocking a child's lunchbox. Once I came home from work to find her rearranging my pantry. She said, Just helping you get organized. You young girls never do things right. Aaron apologized later, rubbing the back of his neck. She means well, he said, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he looked smaller when he talked about her. We celebrated our first anniversary quietly, just dinner, candles, and a playlist of old soul songs. I'd spent the afternoon cooking his favorite meal, chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes, lemon pie. When I heard the knock, I thought it was our neighbor. But it was Lorraine, wearing perfume so sharp it cut through the butter in the air. I thought I'd surprise you, she said, walking in before I could answer. You didn't think you'd celebrate without me, did you? I laughed politely, even though my stomach tightened. She set her purse down, took off her gloves, and joined us at the table like she'd been invited. I poured her wine. Aaron stayed quiet. Then she reached into her bag and slid that envelope toward me. Neat handwriting, my name on the front, and the words that would split open the next year of my life. Petition for dissolution of marriage. At first, I thought it was a joke, a bad one. But she wasn't laughing. She said, You might as well get used to seeing those. Aaron's too good for you, and you know it. I looked at him, waiting for him to defend me. He didn't. He just kept staring at the table. That silence hurt more than her words. Finally, I said, If you wanted to ruin dinner, you could have just burned the chicken. Lorraine smiled, a cold, perfect curve. Oh, sweetheart, she said. You already did that when you married my son. When she left, Aaron followed her out to the porch. I could hear them whisper arguing, voices sharp under the cicadas. I stood by the window, pie cooling behind me, wondering how love could feel so steady 1 minute and so fragile the next. When he came back inside, his eyes were wet. I'll handle it, he said, but he didn't. The next morning, I found out she'd already called his job, told his boss we were having marital troubles and he might need time off. And just like that, what should have been a peaceful first year turned into a war I didn't know I'd enlisted in. The envelope stayed on the counter for days. Neither of us touched it, not to open it, not to move it, just walked past it like it was a spider we were both pretending not to see. Aaron didn't bring it up, and I didn't push him. But silence builds pressure. And by Thursday, I was cracking. I stood at the sink, rinsing dishes, when I finally said it. "You haven't said a word about your mother." He was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone, pretending to read emails. He looked up slowly. "What's there to say?" I dried my hands, turned to face him. "She brought divorce papers into our home, Aaron." On our anniversary, he sighed. "She was being dramatic." "She doesn't mean it." I shook my head. "That wasn't drama. That was planned." He didn't deny it, just sat there, rubbing the bridge of his nose like he was already tired of the conversation. I asked, "Did you know she was coming?" Silence. Then, "She told me she might stop by." I felt my throat tighten. "You let her?" I didn't think she'd do something like that, but I could tell he wasn't shocked. Not really, not like I was. After that, things got quiet between us. Not loud, not angry, just distant, like we were walking around with invisible bruises and afraid to bump into each other. Lorraine kept calling. I stopped answering. Aaron still took her calls, but only outside. I'd watch him through the window, pacing in the backyard, hand on his hip, voice low and tense. At night, he'd come to bed late, whisper, "You okay?" Like the words might break something. I'd nod, because I didn't know what else to say. 2 weeks later, I found out she'd called my mother, said she was worried about the marriage, and that she hoped I wasn't being difficult. My mother, bless her, said, "If you're worried about your son, raise him better next time." But the damage was done. Lorraine was building a case, not in court, but in hearts, trying to plant doubt in the people who loved us. And Aaron? He wasn't stopping her. Then came the credit card statement. I found it while cleaning out the junk drawer. An unopened envelope tucked behind expired coupons and old batteries. When I opened it, my heart dropped. It was for a card I didn't recognize, with Aaron's name. And the balance? $18,742.03. I sat on the floor, the envelope open in my lap, my stomach hollow. The charges weren't mine. Some were months old. Furniture, jewelry, 2 airline tickets from last winter. I waited until dinner to ask. I didn't want to ambush him. We sat down with our plates, and I slid the envelope across the table. Same way his mother had done to me. He stared at it. Didn't open it. "Did she open that?" he asked, voice flat. "No." "I did." He sighed, loud, like he was the one being wronged. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" He didn't answer. I pressed. "Is this her? Did she use your name?" He nodded once. "She needed help," he said, and I didn't know how to say no. I just stared. "You let your mother use your name to open credit cards behind my back?" "She said she'd pay it off, but she didn't." "I know." He wouldn't look at me. I stood up, backed away from the table. "You said we were building a life, but it's just me out here with a hammer and a dream. You gave her the blueprints he didn't speak, and the envelope sat between us, heavier than any bill I'd ever held. The next morning, I called the credit company myself, confirmed it was opened under Aaron's name, confirmed the billing address was his mother's condo, and confirmed something I already knew in my bones. She had been using that card for almost a year. Not once had she paid more than the minimum. Not once had she told me. When I hung up, my hand was shaking, not from anger, from grief, because this wasn't just about money. It was about trust. And I was starting to see that the man I married was still tethered to someone who saw me as her enemy and saw our marriage as a threat. I confronted him that night. No yelling, no threats, just the truth laid out like dinner plates between us. She's stealing from us, Aaron. And you're letting her. His face was pale. She said she'd stop. She promised. You believe her? He hesitated. She's my mother, he said quietly. And I'm your wife. He looked at me finally. I didn't want to choose. You already did. That broke something in both of us, because deep down, I think he thought he was doing the right thing, keeping the peace, balancing both women like scales in a courtroom. But what he didn't realize was that peace built on silence is a lie, and lies always fall apart. The next day, I packed a bag, not to leave, but to think. I stayed with my sister for a few nights just to breathe air that didn't taste like tension. She gave me space, fed me soup, let me cry without asking questions. On the second night, I scrolled through my phone and found a voicemail from Lorraine. You can run to your sister all you want. He'll always choose me. He always has. I didn't save it. I didn't delete it either. I just sat with it, listened to it again and again. And each time I felt less hurt and more sure. Sure that I wasn't the villain. Sure that I'd been invited into a family that never wanted me, only tolerated me as long as I stayed quiet. When I got home, Aaron was on the porch. He stood when he saw me, hands in his pockets, eyes red like he hadn't slept. I paid the card, he said, with savings. I said nothing. I told her I'm done. Still nothing. She cried, said I was killing her. That got a bitter laugh out of me. Of course she did. I told her if she didn't respect my wife, she doesn't get to be in our lives. I looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the man who cried at the altar, the man who held my hand in the middle of a food truck festival and asked if 3 tacos was too much. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't say, it's okay, because it wasn't. But I did say, we fix this together, or we don't fix it at all. He nodded, and that was the first honest moment we'd had in a long time. We didn't heal overnight. That night on the porch, when Aaron told me he'd cut her off, that was a beginning. But beginnings, I've learned, come with aftershocks. Lorraine didn't vanish quietly. She started small. Messages left unread, calls unanswered. But then she went public. She posted on Facebook vague things like, when a woman poisons a family tree, don't be surprised when the branches fall. She told relatives I was isolating Aaron, that I was financially controlling him. She even cornered my mother after church and said, it's a shame when you lose a son because of some girl's insecurities. I didn't respond. I didn't clap back. I gathered everything, screenshots, voicemails, the credit statements, even the note from our neighbor who said Lorraine had been asking about how often we fight. I wasn't building a case to shame her. I was building a case to protect what was mine, my peace, my name, my home. Then I made an appointment with a family therapist. Aaron and I sat on a soft beige couch under buzzing lights and talked about boundaries like they were a foreign language. It was awkward at first. He kept rubbing his palms on his jeans. I stared at the tissue box like it might give me answers. But week by week, we unraveled things deeper than Lorraine, things about guilt, obligation, what it meant to become your own person, not just someone's son or someone's wife. The therapist asked Aaron once, when did you first feel like you were disappointing her? And he said, since I was 12. That broke something open. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about a bad mother-in-law. It was about a wounded man who'd spent his life walking on glass, calling it carpet. Meanwhile, I made a quiet move of my own. I wrote Lorraine a letter, 3 pages, handwritten, folded neat. I told her I wasn't at war with her. I told her I loved her son. I told her I wasn't trying to steal him, just trying to build something with him. But I also told her the truth. That love with conditions isn't love. That manipulation isn't motherhood. And that respect wasn't optional anymore. I ended with, "You can be part of our lives." But not like this. Not through fear. Not through control. The door is open. But only if you knock first. I never mailed it. I didn't need to. Writing it was for me. A release. A reclaiming. One day, Aaron brought home a file folder. Inside were documents for refinancing the house. In both our names this time. "I want us to own this together," he said. It was just a form, just ink on paper, but it felt like bricks being laid, real ones, with mortar, not the illusion of stability I'd been holding before. Then the news came. Lorraine had filed for bankruptcy. Turns out Aaron's card wasn't the only one she'd used. 3 others, 2 maxed, 1 frozen. Aaron found out through a cousin. We sat in the car, outside the grocery store, just staring at the dashboard. "I didn't know it was that bad," he said. "She didn't want you to." He nodded, jaw tight. "I feel like a fool." "You're not." But I could see it. The shame, the unraveling of a lifetime of belief that he could save her, that she needed him more than she needed truth. "She's sick," he whispered. "Maybe. But I can't be her medicine anymore." That was the real gift. Not the envelope she once slid across our table, but the quiet decision to stop bleeding for someone who never brought bandages. By the end of that summer, everyone knew. Not all the details, but enough. Family gatherings got quiet when we walked in. Certain aunts suddenly had to step outside when we arrived. One even said to me, "You know, Lorraine's always been dramatic, but bless her heart, she just wants her boy back." And I said calmly, "He's not missing. He just finally went home." I didn't say it with anger. I didn't raise my voice. I'd stopped needing to convince people by then, because when you start walking in truth, you stop needing to explain your every step. Lorraine never apologized, but she stopped calling, stopped showing up uninvited. We heard through someone's cousin that she was laying low, whatever that meant. Aaron didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. I think part of him was grieving, not the loss of a relationship, but the loss of an illusion. The idea that he could be loved by her without a price. He sat on the porch one night, beer in hand, and said, "I still remember being little and thinking she was the strongest person alive." I sat beside him. Let the silence say what words couldn't. Then I said, "She probably was. Just not in the way you needed." He nodded, eyes glassy. "That's the thing about strength," I added. "It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just doing the right thing, even when it shakes you." He looked at me then, really looked, and said, "I want to be better." "You already are," I whispered. People eventually stopped talking. The cousins who once whispered behind hands started asking about home projects. A few even showed up to help repaint the fence. Someone brought peach cobbler one Sunday. No note, just warm in a foil pan. Aaron went back to work. I started journaling again. We found a rhythm, one with fewer storms. Not perfect, but peaceful. Then came the baby news. No, not us. Aaron's sister, Michelle. She called crying, saying she was scared to tell their mother. Aaron told her gently, "Tell her or don't. But don't let fear write the birth certificate." That's when I realized something had changed. Not just in him, in us. We weren't waiting to be chosen anymore. We'd chosen each other. The real healing didn't come from a big apology. It came from the quiet things. The mornings Aaron made coffee without asking how I liked it, just remembering. The way he stopped flinching every time the phone buzzed. The sound of laughter returning to our little yellow kitchen. There was one morning, early fall, when I caught him humming while washing dishes. It was the same song from our wedding playlist, something old and soulful, full of warmth and second chances. He didn't notice I was watching, and I didn't say anything. But my heart swelled, because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in ordinary moments that don't hurt anymore. We planted a fig tree in the backyard that month. I'd read somewhere that fig trees are stubborn. They take a while to bear fruit, But once they do, they grow deep. Strong roots, wide shade. It felt fitting. Aaron dug the hole. I set the roots. We watered it together. "I want this to last," he said. I looked at him. "At least longer than her envelopes," I said with a soft smile. We both laughed, and for once, it wasn't bitter. Around Thanksgiving, we got a card in the mail. No return address. Inside was a simple note, typed. No handwriting. I was wrong. And I see that now. I hope the tree grows strong. Taped to the bottom was a small seed packet. Fig seeds. Aaron stared at it for a long time. "I think that's all she knows how to give," he said. And I said, "It's more than before." We didn't frame it. Didn't make it a moment. Just tucked it in a drawer. With the wedding napkin I kept. The dried rose from my bouquet. And the ultrasound Michelle sent us of our future niece. Life was moving forward. Not because we erased the past, but because we finally stopped living in it. By Christmas, our home was quieter, but not lonely. Aaron surprised me with a new journal, leather-bound, my initials embossed. "I want you to keep writing," he said. "You tell the truth better than anyone I know." That's the thing, isn't it? Truth doesn't destroy what's real. It just removes what never was. Sometimes, the first crack in your marriage doesn't come from within. It comes from someone standing just outside your front door, smiling with sharp teeth. Mine came in an envelope, on my anniversary, from a woman who said she was family. But family doesn't test your love like it's a competition. Family doesn't ask you to choose between peace and loyalty. What I learned, the hard way, is this. You can't build a future if someone else keeps laying landmines in your past. You either clear the field or you stop walking on it. Aaron and I didn't become stronger because we pretended things were fine. We became stronger because we stopped hiding. We let the truth sting. We sat in the ashes, and then, hand in hand, we planted something new. If you're listening to this right now, maybe you've been the outsider in your own home. Maybe you've been silent too long. Maybe someone has made you feel like your love needs their permission. Let me tell you this, gently but firmly, love is not a courtroom. You don't have to keep proving yourself to the wrong jury. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. And you are allowed to draw lines, even if the person crossing them gave birth to the one you love. So now I ask you, would you have done what I did? Would you have stayed or walked away? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading every word. And if this story touched you, shared your story, or just made you feel seen, subscribe. Stay a while. We tell real stories here. The ones most folks are too afraid to say out loud. You're never alone at this table. Not as long as I'm still talking. Sister Ray.